Hi, everyone, and welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. We have a segment queued up from 1986, a big year for the film industry. That's when the Pixar animation studio first launched. Tom Cruise was fawned over as Maverick with the debut of Top Gun, and James Cameron released one of the top sci-fi films of all time, Aliens. Now, what was being discussed in Ontario's Parliament was far from science fiction. Let's take a listen.
Oral questions. The Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Minister of Industry and Trade. He had a 1.5 hour meeting, we are informed, with Goodyear yesterday. And after that meeting, by his own admission, apparently in the morning papers, his efforts failed. I wonder if, given that, he could at least outline today to the House what the profit and loss situation is of the plant in Etobicoke, so that the government and I guess all of us may decide what the next step, what next appropriate step might be.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, the report in the paper was inaccurate. The meeting wasn't for half an hour; it was closer to 1 hour and 3/4, and it wasn't in the Mode block; it was in the Hearst block. But let me tell you that that it was a.
Is he a private dick?
Order.
The Leader of the Opposition had a question as to the profitability. This matter was raised yesterday or on Monday, and of course the profitability of the company in 1985 was very low because of the strike that they had in Valleyfield. This was an issue that we raised with the company yesterday, and we were told by the company officials from both Canada and from Akron, Ohio, that this particular plant has not been profitable.
Supplementary.
Well, I want to remind the Minister that my question didn't relate to the profitability of the company, because, of course, there's no one proposing that anyone buy the company. It was regard to the plant. And the Minister finally, at the end of his answer, indicated that he was informed by the officials that this particular plant hadn't been profitable. I should tell you, after numerous calls to the union and other people, it is our information that the plant has recently become profitable. My question to the Minister is this: are you in a position this afternoon to say that almost a week after the announced closing, after extensive meetings that you and the Minister of Labour have had, you still cannot report to the House definitively with regard to the profit and loss situation of that particular plant? Have you not even got that information yet?
Minister.
As I stated, that question was asked to the company officials yesterday. They replied that the particular plant was not profitable. I asked them if they would provide the financial statement relating to that plant. They did not offer to do so, on which I said to them that the Premier had suggested that they might be brought before the Accounts Committee and be asked for that information if they didn't volunteer it.
Final supplementary.
Well, Minister, over the years, many ministers have been faced with plant closures, and in every instance that I can recall, the companies have been willing to hand over the information with regard to the profit and loss statement of the plant. Are you in a position this afternoon to tell us that at the end of a 1 3/4 hour meeting, you and your staff were so ineffective that you couldn't even ascertain the profitability of a plant that's about to go under with 1,500 employees so that you could decide what course of action to take? How possibly are you going to proceed and defend those workers if you can't even get the basic information with which to operate from to plan your attack over the next few weeks? Or are you going to let the plant just disappear without taking any further action?
You know, it's kind of hard to see where you stand as the Leader of the Opposition. Here you are as the Leader of the Opposition who called for an emergency debate, and you weren't even present for any of that debate yesterday. In fact, fact, the member from Oshawa had to call for a quorum call because you had 2 members in the House. So how interested are you in this company? How interested are you?
There you are, Harry.
I can tell you that information on the profitability or non-profitability of that company is not forthcoming. We will demand it, and if it's not handed over, we will ask them to go before that committee to give it.
That's the way to go.
New question.
You haven't demanded it. You haven't got it.
New
you have
question.
no idea what to do to
The Leader of the
proceed in
Opposition.
Sure he was.
Well, your party wanted to debate sexual orientation
New
instead of the
question.
Goodyear layoff. That's where your priorities are. Now,
See how many of you guys are here to vote on that. Yeah, we'll do a head count on that one. We'll see where Remo is.
my question is to the Minister of Community and Social Services.
Don't squirm, Remo.
We understand, and I trust this information is now in the Minister's hands, that there is, that in the case of Halton Centennial Manor, a home for the aged, for which he is responsible, reports indicate that 320 residents there are without private washrooms, that washrooms are often without doors, that there is numerous potential for cross-contamination between clean and soiled laundry, and that there are numerous fire hazards. I wonder if the minister could indicate what action his ministry has taken to resolve this potentially very dangerous situation affecting 320 of our senior citizens.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition would be well aware of the fact that the general practice in designing and building homes for the aged in this province was, in fact, not to do so, such that the residents had private rooms or even semi-private rooms. The member would also be aware of the fact that this ministry has launched a $75 million renovation program for existing homes for the aged around this province. Recently, we had the opportunity to officially open Kipling Acres, whereby all of the 4- and 6-bedroom units have been converted into 1- and 2-bedroom units. And even the 2-bedroom units, each with their own washroom, have a dividing wall between them. So we are in the process of going across the province of Ontario, renovating those facilities, which had been part of our inheritance with respect to this ministry, and we will be moving into Centennial Manor at the same time.
Supplementary.
Well, Minister, those are all laudable goals, and not much help there, however, for 320 senior citizens who, as we speak here, are living in a home that has numerous fire hazards by the admission of everyone that's looked at the building. Senior citizens that are in a situation where they are eating in the halls because the dining rooms are overcrowded. And just to make the situation that much worse, it is reported that in one of the buildings, so much sewer gas is escaping from the basement that there is a foul odor throughout the building. Now, my question for the minister is, how long is he prepared to leave 320 senior citizens living in this dangerous and unacceptable situation? Is he going to fix it immediately and move the seniors, or is he content to leave them in those circumstances?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to the extent that there are specific emergency needs, they will be met, and in fact are continuing to be met. But I would have to ask the honourable member what his priority list would be. This ministry has a list of the homes for the aged that are being renovated across the province, and many of these are in the ridings of your members, and they're well aware of that. The second point I would point out to the honourable leader is that each of our municipal homes has a board of management that reports to the local municipal council and also works very closely with our program supervisors. And the kinds of situations that you have described, particularly those that deal with fire hazards, would be one that would be dealt directly with the local municipality and with that local board of management. Now, that board of management has some responsibility in those areas. Our ministry has some responsibilities. and we work closely together.
Final supplementary.
Point out to the minister that, as the auditor outlined yesterday, you can't get away from the fact that the legislation makes you and your ministry responsible for conditions in those homes, maybe through the boards of management or whatever, but you are the person responsible for the condition of those homes. I might also say to the minister that if he's reporting to us that there are across Ontario homes that are higher on the priority list than this one, then he must be saying there are homes that are in even more serious situations. Senior citizens facing even greater fire hazards, senior citizens facing even more deplorable circumstances in terms of their washroom facilities than these ones. If so, could the minister tell us whether or not he agrees with me that this is indeed an emergency situation, and why won't he move immediately to resolve the situation for these 320 seniors?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable leader is probably aware of the fact that there are 184 homes for the aged across this province, 94 under the jurisdiction of municipalities, and approximately 90 under the jurisdiction of charitable boards of directors. And so, therefore, it is entirely possible that there are others that have higher needs than what you just described. And it would be my presumption that that's the basis of our priority list. Now, in the individual circumstance that you're required, I'm quite prepared to take a look at it and have my staff take a look at it. I'm quite prepared to suggest to the honourable member that the local board of management is dealing with this situation as it deems possible. I would remind the honourable leader of the opposition that up until 1972, during the jurisdiction of the previous government, there were regular ministry inspections of homes for the aged. At that point in time, it was the decision taken by the previous government that the ministry should not conduct direct inspections, but that should be the responsibility of the boards of management, which were constituted and set up with the authority and with the approval of that previous government. Mr. Speaker, my ministry, shortly after my becoming minister, launched an accountability review of all of the agencies, including Homes for the Aged, to see precisely how that system was working out. And where changes are necessary, changes will be made. As my leader said, we are not wedded to your past.
Order. Order. New question. The member for York South.
Speaker, the road to Damascus is beginning to look like the Don Valley Parkway at 5 o'clock. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Industry and Trade. I'm rather astonished, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister has not made a statement about Goodyear. I'm also astonished that he has not made a statement to the House with respect to the question of softwood lumber exports and the so-called deal that was either worked out or not worked out at the First Ministers' Conference. I'd like to ask the Minister of Industry and Trade if he can tell us. He will know that time is running out with respect to the filing of an appeal and the formal filing of papers in the United States. I would like to ask the Minister, is it the intention of this government, given all its protestations, given all the statements, given all the flurry of rhetoric that we have heard over the last while, though not during the critical period when the 10% was given away, I'd like to ask the Minister, is it the intention of the Government of Ontario to fight and fight and fight again, as was stated so often during this last week?
Mr. Speaker, thank the member for the question. It's just too bad that the leader of the third party couldn't have been out west to see what a great job the Premier did in fighting for this province.
On a point of order?
A point of order?
Neither I nor the leader of the opposition were invited to attend the conference.
Response?
It's just too bad that you weren't there and replied to the members. In reply to the leader's question, yes, we will continue to pursue this in the interest of the industry here in Ontario.
Fight.
The member for Algoma would like to ask a supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The minister hasn't made clear whether or not this province intends to file before the deadline at the end of this week. Also, could he indicate if there is to be a deal, as is talked about by the federal government and the governments of British Columbia and Quebec, does he know how the 15% increase is to be made up? Will it be made up of increases in stumpage fees or some kind of export charges or a combination of the two? Could he answer those two questions?
Minister?
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I will say that we have engaged the firm of Hogan and Hartson of Washington through Blake Castles and Graydon of Toronto, who will be representing us and have filed notice with the Americans that we wish to receive all the information. Will be our agents there to represent the province of Ontario. As far as discussing how the 15% or the 10% or any percent will be handled, we take it that we should be fighting it and that we shouldn't give in to any agreement such as that.
Final supplementary, the member for Nickel Belt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do wish the minister had responded to my colleague's question. The minister would know that just in the very recent past there have been layoffs at Searchmount north of the Sioux, at Terrace Bay, and last night in announcement at Nairn Centre in my own constituency of the shutdown of the largest sawmill in Ontario. The minister must surely understand that this could just be the beginning, because the United States industry has indicated that they're not satisfied with the 15% tariff. They want 20% and or more. And given that, and given the fact that that could very well lead to a whole new era of shutdowns and layoffs in Northern Ontario that would create even more starkly than there is now two Ontarios, one in the south and one in the north. Could the minister tell us what plans he has to respond to this new crisis of unemployment in Northern Ontario?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, we have, our course, as I have mentioned on previous occasions, are very concerned with any of the unemployment that happens. We have been trying to work very closely through our regional offices and through meetings that both I and my staff, the Minister of Natural Resources, have had with those communities, and we will continue to do what we can, but we feel that we cannot give in to a 15 or a 20 or a 25 or 30%. We have to fight that issue and take it to the courts right through the system.
New question. The member for Scarborough West. New question.
Mr. Speaker, I have questions for the Minister of Community and Social Services, and I would like to pose to the Minister three hypothetical circumstances which point out some of the irrational discrepancies in the social assistance system and then ask his comments on them. First would be 14-year-old Sarah and 10-year-old Adam are currently living with foster parents, Mr. and Mrs. Black. Your ministry's 1985 guidelines for foster care suggest the Blacks should receive $535 a month to feed, clothe, and look after Sarah, and $440 a month for Adam. Next week, Sarah is returning to live with her mother, a single parent, on family benefits. Your ministry will provide Sarah's mom with only $115 a month extra for the same purposes. Adam is returning to his parents, who've been on welfare since his father was in a car accident. They will receive less than $100 a month extra from welfare when Adam returns. Given that foster care rates guidelines clearly indicate that those costs are only for the cost of the child, how can Sarah and Adam's parents do the same job with 25% of the money? What does your ministry think that Adam and Sarah should do without when they go home?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member would be aware of the fact that the foster parent program is a very specific one, having a specific goal, and that's to encourage other families to take into their homes children that are not their own. It also takes into consideration the fact that many of these children have specific needs that can't be met in their own families, and that in fact, if they could, they wouldn't have to go into a foster family at all. So when we look at the financial resources that we provide to a foster family, we have to look at, first of all, the fact that this is not their child. They are not directly responsible for this child. The fact that there are special needs above and beyond just food and clothing, and the fact that they are making a contribution to society above and beyond which a natural parent would make. I am not suggesting, and the member is obviously aware of the fact that one of the reasons we have George Thompson's committee, I am not suggesting that the amounts that we give to the natural parents are necessarily enough. and that's one of the reasons why we're having the review. But I think that there should be a clear distinction made between the role of a foster parent and the role of a natural parent and the responsibility of each.
Supplementary, sorry. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I think the record will show that the guidelines clearly indicate they are only for the cost of the child, not for other exceptional circumstances, and certainly not to encourage people to become foster parents. When you made your announcement about the new rates on November 4th, you said today's announcement demonstrates that we are not putting action on hold while we explore the possibilities of a more fundamental change to the review process. I don't think this needs to wait either, sir. Here's another example. Daniel is a 66-year-old man. The provincial government guarantees that Daniel receives $727 a month through its Gains program. But Daniel's friend Joe is 59 years of age. He is blind, confined to a wheelchair, and lives in Metro Toronto housing. The provincial government provides Joe with only $458. If he was living in a high-rent private apartment, he would get a maximum of $605 under family benefits. If you are on welfare, the figures would be $301 as a minimum and $448 as a maximum in January of this year coming up. If Daniel has just managed to get by on his $727, how do you expect Joe to survive on $458 or on $301? And what does your ComSoc expect, your ministry expect Joe to do without? Both are unable to work. Why don't they have the same needs and the same money?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member has on a number of occasions now, and quite rightly so, drawn to our attention the difference between the support that's made available to a senior in our society and that's made to a disabled person. And I understand from his question that's the same distinction he's making again today. I would draw to your attention that the higher amount that's made available to a senior is a federal allocation. And the decisions which the federal government makes with respect to additional money to seniors is a decision which they make within their own realm, and I certainly don't quarrel with it. I have pointed out to the honourable member that while there still is a differential, that we have at every occasion closed the gap between the disabled and the aged. We're down now considerably below what it was when we took over this government, and I announced in my most recent rate increases that in fact we were closing that gap further still. And I can say to the honourable member that I recognize the problem, I accept the expression of his concern, and we will continue to close that gap.
Final supplementary.
Let's deal with an area that is absolutely within your jurisdictional. I'm surprised to see you wanting to recommend that the federal government should be more generous than you. Final supplementary. The example is as follows. Karen and Rachel's father injured his back on the job and is receiving total temporary benefits from workers' compensation, which guarantees him 90% of his net earnings. His family would receive about $1,540 a month if he was earning the average industrial wage when injured. But Joanne and Jim's father hurt his back at home. When his UIC ran out, he turned to welfare, which will provide the family of four with a maximum of $748 excluding shelter subsidy and a maximum of $985 with the maximum shelter subsidy. Why does the provincial government discriminate according to where you are injured? Is the injury not as significant if it is at home as it is if it is on the job? Why don't they receive the same amount?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're talking once again of two quite different programs. There has been considerable discussion, and I recall it when we were debating the changes to the workers' compensation legislation, that there should be a single program to assist all people who are injured, whether it be at home or whether it be in the workplace. That is still a valid observation and a valid point for investigation. At the present time, the workers' compensation program is funded entirely by the employers of the province. The welfare program is funded entirely from the tax base of the province, and I would suggest to my honourable colleague that the amount of money that comes from the welfare program is based upon a needs assessment, whereas the amount of money that comes from the workers' compensation is based upon a percentage of income. They're quite different criteria, and one would not expect that the two end result figures would be the same.
New question. The member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Industry, otherwise known as the Minister in charge of deindustrialization of this province.
Oh, hi, Rennie.
You did quite well out of progressive Conservative governments for the member of Cochrane North. You did quite well out of the progressive Conservative.
Order. Order. Would the member take a seat? Order. 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 Would the two members for Cochrane contain themselves? And I would remind all members that it's much better not to point across the floor, but to direct your questions through the Speaker. So the member for Cochrane South with a question.
I hear you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask a question of the Minister of Industry with respect to layoffs in the resource industries of this province. We know once again of another layoff, Ontario Paper Company in Thorold, 90 jobs lost in the sulfite pulping plant, the potential of another 230 jobs at risk. Is the Minister going to meet with the officials of that company and with their workers' representatives? When is he going to do that, and what's he going to do to protect those workers and help those workers out?
Minister?
Pardon me, was the question Ontario Paper, you say? I'd like to say that, first of all, that we are, again, very concerned with any of those losses. In regard to the Ontario Paper Company, they did announce that 1 year from now there would possibly be a layoff of 90 people. I might say in this particular case that the president of that company was kind enough to call me and some of the other members regarding to discuss the matter with him, and we will continue dialogue with him to see in which way we can help him.
Supplementary?
Well, you didn't answer the question about what you were going to do to help those workers, and I find it rather ironic that the president of the company would have to call you. You don't take it upon yourself to call any of the chief executive officers of these companies and try and deal with this situation. We've checked with a number of resource companies across Northern Ontario who have announced layoffs, including in the riding of Cochrane North. We've checked with a number of chief executive officers in these companies, and not one of them has been contacted by you in the last 3 months after they've announced layoffs, or by any other minister of this government. Now, why do you have a double standard? Why are you so engaged in rightfully meeting with the representatives of Goodyear Tire Company and the workers' representatives at Goodyear in Toronto, and you won't give the chief executive officers and the workers in Northern Ontario the time of day in this government?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I believe that the member asked a similar question to the Minister of Natural Resources yesterday, and he was given an excellent answer. May I just say to you that this ministry and the Ministry of Natural Resources and this government have been in touch with people of the North. You know that our offices throughout the North have been in constant touch with them. The Minister, myself, and the Premier have met with the industry officials. We are meeting with them this week, and we are also meeting with them again next week.
Point of privilege.
Point of privilege?
The point of privilege is that the minister has stood in his place and knowingly said something that we know factually not to be correct. He has not met with a single senior.
Order. 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 After that point of view, new question, the member for Welland-Thorold.
Mr. Speaker, I want to pursue this matter further of the layoffs at the Ontario Paper Company in Thorold. The minister indicated that they're shutting down the sulfite operation in a year's time, and that with 90 people would be laid off. The facts are, and you ought to know this, Mr. Minister, that they are going to shut down the chemical operation unless they can sell it too, and the total number of people out of work will be 320. Given, Mr. Minister, that this company received $32 million in public funds 5 years ago, 21 million of that come out of the taxpayers of this province, and given that I think that any prudent minister would follow closely the employment policy of the company, I wonder if you can tell us when you first knew that this decision of the company and what input you've had with the company already.
I thank the member for the question, and as I know, when the President talked with me yesterday or the day before yesterday, he did mention that he had also talked with the member, and of course you have concern as do we. As far as the chemical plant, those layoffs are not definite in any way at all. They have a prospective buyer, and our ministry has been involved in looking for other prospective buyers, and I hope that a buyer can be found and those jobs will be saved.
Supplementary?
Well, I must say to the minister, it's preposterous that you didn't know that a decision was being made. They announced it a year ago that they were considering this shutdown. And you wouldn't have been notified by now if I hadn't mentioned it to the president of that company when he called me on this issue. By way of supplementary,
and the supplementary is?
By way of supplementary, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the minister that there is the probability of saving more than two-thirds of those jobs if the sale of the chemical division to another paper mill goes through. And will you belatedly, and with some determination and some resources if those are necessary, now intervene to assure that the deals go through so those 225 jobs can be saved?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, I think the President would have had the courtesy to not only call you, but to call me and to call other people. I believe he called Mr. Bradley, too, so I don't think that you're any more special than either Mr. Bradley or I. You just can't be. I would say as the member is aware, there is one prospective buyer. We would hope that there may be others there that we will also be able to talk to and give assistance if possible.
New question.
Say the word, if you correct. Did I hear him say the word hope? That's what he is going to do.
Honorable member did have a question in the supplement, calling for a new question. The member for Sudbury.
Mr. Speaker, a question for the Minister of Industry and Trade.
The Minister of Hope.
Can the minister explain why your government is prepared to haul the executive members of Goodyear before a committee of this legislature for a Toronto layoff, and yet you're not prepared to haul Bill James in Falconbridge, who will be laying off over 500 men, with the attendant suffering to those workers and those families in Sudbury?
Minister?
Well, of course, that matter has been raised on a couple of occasions, and of course, again, we are very concerned about the loss of those jobs in Sudbury, and we'll be doing everything possible we can to find work for them to see that they are given work.
Well, Speaker, it's quite obvious
Supplementary.
that this government has a double set of standards. You have one set of standards for Southern Ontario and for boat-rich metropolitan Toronto, and you have another set of standards for Northern Ontario and the Sudbury region and those workers.
Order. I think we'll just wait until things settle down, and I don't think anyone heard what was said. Could you briefly repeat the question?
Yes. To the Minister of Industry and Trade, obviously there's a double standard here where this government's concerned, and you're saying that the Toronto layoff must be justified, but in the north, well, it's due to world competition for resource people. When are you going to start standing up for the people of Northern Ontario, in particular for the people in Sudbury? and bring them before a select committee
Minister.
of this legislature.
Mr. Speaker, I believe that we have been standing up for the people of Northern Ontario, and we will continue to do so. I also understand that there was a meeting called about a couple of weeks ago that you, as the member for Sudbury, did not even turn up to that meeting. I also understand that there was to be an arrangement where we would set up another meeting for you, and you never took that up either. I would just like to tell you we're very proud of the record here in Ontario with one of the lowest unemployment rates in all of Canada, and we will continue to work to see that that same rate is brought to Northern Ontario.
New question. Order. Well, under which standing order? Under which standing order?
Is dissembling when he says that. I mean, that's not the truth at all.
Order. Well, order. I could inform all members that we may be able to take a recess to sort of keep things toned down. However, I'm sure that I said we may. Order. Order. Really? New question, the member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Housing. I'd like to ask the Minister a question about the housing of the disabled. I'd like to ask him, first of all, about the Ontario Home Renewal Program. I wonder if the Minister can explain to the House why there has been no new money put into that program for the last 3 years. And I wonder if he can explain why the maximum grant of $4,000 is only available to people who are making $6,000 a year. I wonder if the Minister can explain those two facts.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the Ontario Home Renewal Program, I said, why were there no new money in there for 3 years? Is that 3 years ago, actually, these monies were in the municipalities and were not being used. What we have done is to go back to the municipality and reactivate those money and said we must use those money. If you're not going to use it, we will move them around. There's a tremendous amount of activity in the last year for money that was sitting in the municipalities, Mr. Speaker, and we have great results from those new reactivated programs. Yes, there have been, on your second point, to the honourable member, that the minimum 6,000 have been raised a couple of times, and we'll be looking at it.
Supplementary?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Minister a question about a constituent of mine who came to see me last night. Her name is Lorraine Cahoon. She has 4 children. Her 13-year-old daughter, whose name is Charlene, has spina bifida. She's been in a wheelchair all her life. I wonder if the Minister can explain why you've got a program for the private sector, which is a very inadequate program. Lorraine Cahoon and her family are in a 4-bedroom townhouse in my constituency, and they cannot get a lift. So the result is that Mrs. Cahoon has to, every 2 or 3 hours, carry her daughter up and down the stairs. I wonder if the Minister can explain how in Ontario in 1986 this kind of situation can continue, how your government feels about this, given all its expressions with respect to helping people with disability, and how you can explain the complete blockage in any attempt to deal with this problem. We have been dealing with this problem with respect to Mrs. Cahoon for months, and we've had no solution. How can you justify that?
Questions have been asked.
Mr. Speaker, in respect of what is the approach of our government in regards to the disabled, as you know that we have a minister who is also responsible for the disabled. And Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member would give the impression, Mr. Speaker, that there is nothing done in the public sector in our housing programs. In our housing program, we made provisions for the disabled. And I fully agree with the member, Mr. Speaker. It's not enough to deal with the entire problem of the disabled. It's very unfortunate that that individual, the lady that you mentioned, has to go through these steps at a long time in order to address that problem. We hope that within another 2 years or so we'll be able to resolve all of those problems. I know it's not fast enough, but again, we're addressing those problems the best way we know.
New question. The member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question to the Minister of Deindustrialization of Ontario. The minister who just said to the House that he's proud of the fact that the unemployment rate in Northern Ontario is 13%. That same minister who said he's proud of his government's performance.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of privilege, I did not say that at all. I said that the unemployment rate in Ontario was 6.9%, and we hope to lower that rate, the rate that it is in Northern Ontario. That's what I said.
By inference, you imply.
Mr. Speaker, this minister said he was proud of his government's efforts when we've got unemployment in Sault Ste. Marie at 15.5%, Sudbury at 10.6%, and across Northern Ontario well in excess of 13%. You were proud of that. You just said so 2 minutes ago. I want to know why, getting back to the question from the member from Sudbury, why you have a double standard, why you will go and meet with the Goodyear executives here in Toronto and you refuse, and you say you're going to bring them before a committee of the legislature, and you refuse to listen to the people of Sudbury and bring them before the Falconbridge executives before a committee of this legislature. Why do you have a double standard?
The thing is that we do not have a double standard. We're trying to correct some of the problems that you people didn't do for 42 years. 42 years. Let me also tell you that this province has never had more industrial development than it has had over the last year and a half. Never had as much. And what we're planning on doing is doing more things for the North and giving some of that industry to the North. And as far as your question about meeting with the people, we have continued to meet with them, and we will continue to meet with them.
Not only is this minister now proud of the unemployment rate in Northern Ontario, he's now proud of what's happening to the industries in Northern Ontario.
New question, the member for Lake Nipigon. Order. New question, the member for Lake Nipigon. Order. Member for. Well, I was waiting for it, but you were giving a speech. Order. Order. Well,
by way of
place the supplementary.
Supplementary. To the minister who is so proud of the state of the resource sector in Northern Ontario. My supplementary is, why won't you have the officials of Falconbridge brought before a committee of this legislature the same kind of standard you have for Goodyear?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member sinks kind of low in some of his comments to this side of the House. Might I say, if you were here a little more often, you might be able to fight a little better for the North.
New question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Transportation and Communications.
The member for Lake Nipigon would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Minister for MTC, Minister, I really come to you as a last resort this afternoon. In the past month, sir, there has been at least 10 fatalities on Northern Highways 11 and 17. I've mentioned to you in the past that the degree of road maintenance this year has been either deplorable or, in most cases, non-existent. I'm here specifically to ask you today to take your responsibility to help your ministry end the kind of carnage that takes place in the north, so that if the same situation was to happen in southern Ontario, there would be association of concerned citizens suggesting that someone has blood on their hands. What specific steps are you willing to take to end the fatalities and the many accidents that have been occurring in the north, Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure the member from the north that we take the safety of the traveling public just as seriously in northern Ontario as we do in southern Ontario, which is one of the reasons we recently rejected increasing the speed limits in northern Ontario, as had been petitioned by one of your colleagues from the north. I'm aware of the situation, the statistics that you presented me with. We are attempting to get the details of the nature of the fatalities. It's on the first go-around, the road conditions had very little to do with some of those fatalities, as I indicated to you. But until I am able to conclude precisely the times of day, the road conditions, and other circumstances that relate to any major accident, certainly one that results in a fatality, I would not attempt now to respond to each of, I think, 10 fatalities that you have brought to my attention yesterday. We will have that information, and I'll be only too pleased to give it to you, and I would only be too pleased to assure you that the levels of maintenance standards in the north will not be compromised because it's the north. You'll have the same standard of maintenance as we have here in the south.
A supplementary, the member for Algoma.
Is the minister aware that as a result of the restraint program of the previous government, in real dollar terms, the expenditure of your ministry in capital and in maintenance of northern roads has gone down for the last number of years? Is the minister aware that the patrol yards now are the patrols are twice as long as they used to be, and maintenance is much less than it used to be? In terms of a major storm, your crews don't get out now until the storm is over, and the traveling public is left to fend for itself unless the OPP closes the road. Are you prepared to make a commitment to this House that you will increase the funding for maintenance of roads across Ontario, and particularly on the poorer roads that we have in northern Ontario?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no one is more aware than I of the previous government's reduction in funding overall to this particular ministry. For 11 years, it was diminished, as the member well knows, from a very high percentage of the overall provincial budget to a low of some 5.6%. And the member is also aware that in the last two budgets brought in by our treasurer, the overall share of the budget to this ministry has increased, an average of 7%. We will direct as much of that money to highway safety and maintenance as I can possibly do.
New question, the member for Sarnia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question to the very busy Minister of Industry. Well over a year ago, Mr. Minister, I spoke to both you and the Premier in this House with respect to the imminent phase-out of tetraethyl lead at the ethyl facility in Sarnia. I indicated to you that jobs would be lost at that particular plant if, in fact, your ministry did not take some action to assist with either retraining programs or some form of capital assistance to keep the plant in operation. Could you tell this House what your ministry has done over the course of the past year in connection with that plant?
Minister.
Speaker, I would have to get an update for the minister as to where that now stands, and I'd be very pleased to do that.
I'd be pleased to give the minister an update right now. I understand that 6 weeks ago the Premier's office contacted the plant, Mr. Speaker, in anticipation of a question that may arise in the House. My understanding is that no official from your ministry over the course of 12 months has made any effort to save the 155 jobs at that plant. I say to you, what kind of confidence can the Goodyear workers or the workers in the North have in your ministry if you've been given 1 year's notice and you haven't even picked up a telephone yet?
Again, Mr. Speaker, I will check on it and get back to the member.
The member for Hamilton East would like your attention so he could ask a question.
I have a question for the Minister of Energy. Minister of Energy may or may not be aware that the professional and administrative employees of Ontario Hydro, 6,500 in number, have applied for certification and status before the Ontario Labour Relations Board. I warned this House a week ago in a statement during member statement period that the rumors were that 1,500 exemptions or exclusions would be asked for by the Ontario Hydro. Is the Minister aware that Ontario Hydro now has gone to the board and asked that 3,100 of these people be excluded from any right to have organization, half of the unit, and can he tell us what's going on at Ontario Hydro?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I certainly am aware of what's happening at Ontario Hydro in relative to the professional employees attempting to be taken into a union. I'm also very much aware that Ontario Hydro has put before the Labour Board some of the people that they feel should or should not be able to comply in order to participate in that union. So I suppose, Mr. Speaker, in answer to the member's question, it's before the Labour Board where it should very properly be, and there will be a decision made in that forum.
Supplementary?
Well, I'm rather surprised that the minister made that comment, and I'm wondering if you'll listen carefully for a moment. For 8 or 9 years now, those employees, all 6,500 of them, have been covered under a contract, a voluntary contract, which already recognizes some 250 exclusions where they have the authority to hire and fire. They went before the board and agreed to exclude another 600, which I probably wouldn't have done. So that's already there. So tell me why Ontario Hydro, who have a contract now with these people, just because they've asked for the added protection of the Labour Relations Board and for certification, now says that what you had yesterday, you can't have tomorrow. 3,100 of them are not going to be included in that bargaining unit. It's arrogance. It's a jackass position by that company.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member asked me if I knew about the situation, and I responded and told him that I did know about it, and I knew what was happening, and I knew it was before the Labour Board. Now, he must be perfectly aware that under the Power Corporations Act, that this is going to have to be discussed and debated between the people that are applying and Ontario Hydro. I don't know why he would expect me to be involved in this whole situation. I'm absolutely certain that he understands that Ontario Hydro is now bargaining with the people applying to be certified. I can't understand why you would come to me with the question.
New question? Order. The member for Ottawa West.
Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Government Services. Would the Minister try to explain...
Order. Order.
Would the Minister try to explain the incredible cop-out by his government in the bombshell announcement yesterday that instead of the long-awaited and promised 12 courtrooms to be used by the District and Ontario Supreme Court of the new Ottawa Courthouse, we're now going to get only 8? And more specifically, would the Minister tell who his ministry spokesperson, Margie Lockhart, consulted and what information led her to say, and I quote, "It was my information they weren't required right now. Adding funding for 12 courtrooms was never approved," thereby contradicting an earlier announcement by the former Minister Eleanor Kaplan. Who's running the store over there?
Minister? Minister?
Speaker, I want to say that I'm never in Moose Creek. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, to my good friend from Ottawa West, whose question I welcome, that I'll let our client, the Attorney General, diffuse the bombshell, if nothing else.
Attorney General?
To discuss this matter with the President of the County of Carleton Law Association. The circumstances are, as the honourable member will know, is that the new courthouse, which opens, I think, this week in the City of Ottawa, has 27 courtrooms, including 6 jury courtrooms to serve 3 courts. We have indicated to the President of the County of Carleton Law Association that there is no present evidence that there is the capacity to provide judges to serve additional courtrooms. We have asked the President of the County Association and the local judges to carefully monitor the utilization of those 27 courtrooms, and if it can be demonstrated that 27 is not enough, the available space in the building will be committed at an early date to additional courtrooms.
Supplementary, the member for Carleton Grenville.
The Attorney General should know that before the new courthouse opened this week, that there were 7 courtrooms plus many chambers of judges that were used for district and Supreme Court hearings. In addition, as I said, there were many of these trials held in chambers. So by replacing 7+ courtrooms with 8 courtrooms is not going to solve the problem of the backlog in these particular courts. When I was a member of the government, I met regularly with the committee, the courthouse committee of the Carleton Bar Association, to discuss issues like this. And I want to quote to the Attorney General.
A supplementary question.
The president of the Carleton Law Association's remarks in the Ottawa Citizen. Not only did the government not consult with us, no one in our association even knew a study was going on in October. My question to the minister is, why are you offering the citizens of Ottawa-Carleton a second-class justice system in a first-class building?
Minister.
And number 2,
Order.
Mr.
Order.
Houston will be here in Toronto tonight. Will you meet with...
Order. The question's been asked. Order. Would the honourable member take his seat?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've met with Mr. Houston on a number of occasions, and I'm perfectly willing to meet with him. He's a longtime personal friend on any opportunity. Last night when we met, or when we talked on the telephone, he didn't regard it as necessary. I'll tell him that the honourable member thinks that he and I should meet and see how he reacts to that. Of course, the honourable member has his facts wrong. There aren't 7 courtrooms. There are 27 courtrooms in this courthouse. Now, the honourable member reflects an earlier age when courtrooms were assigned to one division of the court or the other. And if there were 8 Supreme courtrooms, those courtrooms could not be used by the provincial court. And if there were 10 provincial courtrooms, they could not be used by the Supreme Court. Those days, as the honourable member will know from hearing the statement made about 10 days ago, are over. There are 27 courtrooms provided in the newest and finest facility in Canada, in Ottawa. Now, when those courtrooms are shown by utilization to be insufficient, there is space to provide more courtrooms, and we will do so. But as I indicated in the statement, we do not intend to provide or finish courtroom spaces that are not demonstrated to be required.
Order. New question. The member for Sudbury East.
Question to the Premier. At public accounts several weeks ago, we were going to discuss a 20-part motion as a result of the provincial auditor's investigation into the IAPA. That 20-part motion, Mr. Premier, called for, number 1, $31.7 million to Labour to look after the health and safety matters of workers in this province on behalf of Labour, the funds from the WCB. The second part called for the establishment of clinics so workers could be tested before they die. The Liberal members of that committee, along with the Conservatives, asked for a delay on voting on items 1 and 2 until we could draft a resolution that was acceptable to all. It's now the Liberal position that they're no longer prepared, even though at that time they were prepared to support that motion. Can you tell me what happened?
Premier?
I say to my honourable friend, I have no idea what happened.
Supplementary. Then maybe it's time the Premier found out what the Minister of Labour is all about. It's my understanding that the Minister of Labour pressured his colleagues not to support that motion, not to give equal funding to workers in this province that the accident prevention associations get, and not to establish worker clinics where workers could be tested before they die, like at Inco, like at Mansfield, like at Elliott Lake. Are you prepared to instruct your members to support that motion so that we can get it through, because they were prepared to until there was intervention by someone.
My honourable friend suggests a scenario in this House, and I say to you honestly, I don't know if that's accurate or not. I wasn't familiar with the circumstances, but I'd be happy to discuss it with the keeper of with the minister upon his return, and discuss it with the members of the committee. I'm not familiar with the merits of the case one way or the other, and we'll get back to the honourable member.
New question. The member for Wentworth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Colleges and Universities. Recently, the Minister announced substantial increase in funding for post-secondary institutions in Ontario. Can the Minister indicate to the members of this House when the formula will be available for each specific institution so that they can appropriately plan their future requirements?
Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad... Mr. Speaker, I'm glad my friend asked the question. I note that the opposition, since the recent rally at the University of Toronto, have taken a singular disinterest in the area of post-secondary education. In answer to my friend's question, the matter of formula revision, which will allocate the dramatic increase in funding, is now before the Ontario Council on University Affairs. I expect the Council to report to me within about a month or two, and at that time the universities will know precisely how that increment in funding will be allocated university by university.
It has expired. I have to get that in there.